see another female sovereign, certainly in our lifetime.
Monarch, the world's second longest ruling monarch in history, her reign spanning 70 years. We just received a tweet from the royal family saying the Queen died peacefully at Balmoral this afternoon. The King and the Queen consort will remain at Balmoral this evening and will return to London tomorrow.
This, of course, something that has been a great subject, her health over the past several years, and certainly this year as well. We just saw her celebrate 70 years, the Queen's Jubilee, something we have never seen before, that a monarch serving 70 years there. But this statement now follows an earlier statement, Robach, that we got from the palace, which was very rare and very concerning to a lot of people, that they said that there was a concern, or doctors had concern about her health, and that she was under medical supervision. People who have watched the palace for years and years know that that was almost an unprecedented statement for them to put out, and because of that, there was a lot of concern about her health. She had been on summer break at her palace there, her castle in Balmoral, her home in Scotland. Her kids are there. Prince Charles is there, Princess Anne, Prince Edward, Prince Andrew, they're there. Prince William did get in a short time later. We're told Prince Harry is on his way, but we also, Robach, saw the last time a public image of her was just on Tuesday. That's
right. She appointed the new prime minister there, Liz Truss, and the other reason why people were concerned, there was a scheduled meeting with top ministers. It was postponed yesterday, doctors urging the Queen to get rest. Her health had been a growing concern since she was hospitalized in London, you may remember. Back in October, there was a bout with COVID in February. She also missed the opening of Parliament in May for only the third time, and the Queen did turn 96 in April, and we all remember the celebratory Platinum Jubilee back in June. You're looking there, by the way, at a live shot at the Union Jack, now flying at half staff, and certainly a much different crowd forming there near Buckingham Palace. Typically, we see notices. Sometimes we see births, and this time we're expecting to see, of course, the announcement of the death of the Queen being placed at the gates of both Buckingham Palace and Balmoral as well, so we are monitoring those gates as well. We know that our Maggie Rulli has been on the ground there in Scotland, reporting the very latest as we first got word about the Queen's failing health. So Maggie, give us a sense of what things are like there and what you've learned.
Yeah, Amy and TJ, like you guys have said, there have been so many concerns, but I think for people hearing the news for the first time right now, we're in shock. It's almost hard to imagine a world without Queen Elizabeth. She has been such a constant for the past 70 years. Her face on coins, on stamps, just written into the fabric of British culture. But it's more than that. The entire world knows Queen Elizabeth. The vast majority know her as the British monarch, their only British monarch. So today is the end of an era. Today is the end of the second Elizabethan age. And it's hard to overstate just how important this moment is, how historical this moment is. You know, the three of us, we were all there at the Platinum Jubilee. I think that's when I really felt and saw firsthand what the Queen means to this country. The Queen is country. So to lose her today, it's losing a sense of your identity. And I think going forward, not only will there be shock, it is quickly turning to grief, not just here in the UK, but around the world.
And you mentioned there, Maggie, shock and grief. This is a 96-year-old woman whose health has been obviously talked about for some time. She started using a cane. But again, she made it through that bout of COVID earlier this year. And again, at the Jubilee, there were moments, and as we share pictures here, Balmoral, we talk about where she is now, this home that that many people, as I bring in our ABC News contributor, Robert Jobson, who's at Buckingham Palace for us. Robert, I actually want to tell you, we heard you in our ear a short time ago. We heard you talking to your sources. And even though she's 96, her health has been a concern for a while, to hear you say the words that your source had told you she's gone, still in some way that's shocking and sends chills.
Well, it's a deeply sad day for the people of Britain and the people of the Commonwealth, indeed, for the world, because, you know, this is an incredible lady that carried out her duty all her life, and in fact was doing her duty swearing in the new Prime Minister just a couple of days ago, which just shows you the type of incredible person that she was. But now the machinations of the Constitution of this country now get into play. There is the Prince of Wales now is the King, and Camilla is the Queen Consort. The situation is going to unfold over the next few days, where the Queen's body will be moved to Holyrood in Edinburgh, and then there'll be a service at St Giles Cathedral. And then the body will be brought down to it's quite hard actually even saying it, but been brought down to London for the ceremony that will take place here. So we've got 10 days of mourning before the funeral, but this country and the world is in mourning now, and it's we can only reflect on what was a truly incredible reign from an amazing person who was an epitome of duty and dedication of service.
Well, Robert, we know that we will be checking in with your expertise as to what is going to happen over the next few days, but we're showing you here. This is the official royal family website, and you can see now it has gone black with Queen Elizabeth II's birth date in 1926 all the way to her death today in 2022. This website actually even crashed earlier today following the news of the Queen's health concerns. When people went on to check on the Queen and to see what the royal family was saying, an error message actually appeared on the screen reading Gateway timeout, but you can see now the website turning black in honor of Queen Elizabeth II. And of course, we know she was queen for more than half a century, 70 years to be specific. Queen Elizabeth II reigned over a rapidly changing country. The last days of what was once a vast empire, she weathered scandals, both personal and professional, that would threaten the future of the monarchy. But through it all, she ruled with a steady hand and a sincere devotion to the British people. That affection was mutual, a connection that captured so many times that why today Great Britain is a nation in mourning as we see those crowds gather at Buckingham Palace. We have ABC's Terry Moran taking a look back at her life.
She was simply, to millions around the world, the Queen. The most famous woman of her time, from her coronation in 1953 to the outpouring of affection on her Diamond Jubilee, marking 60 years on the throne. So much history, so many indelible moments. Decade after decade, from the Cold War to the computer age, what an extraordinary reign. And for all those years, through all that history, duty is what defined this remarkable woman. She was born in 1926, a little princess, Lilibet her family called her, who was never expected to become queen until her uncle, the Playboy King Edward VIII, abdicated the throne to marry an American divorcee, and her father then became King George VI. The young Elizabeth was suddenly next in line for the throne.
I declare before you all that my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service and to the service of our great imperial family.
During World War II, the princess did her duty. She was a driver and mechanic on the home front, and she fell in love in those years, a handsome prince, swashbuckling Navy Lieutenant Philip Mountbatten.
Take thee, Philip.
To my wedded husband.
To my wedded husband.
They married in 1947. 5 years later, when King George died, Lilibet became Queen Elizabeth II. Her coronation was an international sensation. But the British Empire Elizabeth inherited was falling apart, all the colonies becoming independent nations. So she helped to create a new realm dubbed the British Commonwealth.
When we were young, it was very easy to take our grandmother for granted. You know, she was just a grandmother to us. I've actually really learned to sort of understand and accept the huge deal that she is around the world.
Elizabeth traveled the world, more than 250 overseas trips, showing how the British monarch could change with the times and shape them, even as she raised 4 children, the most famous working mum in the world.
She was a young woman in a man's world, carving her own way through life and through a job that she, like any of us, don't necessarily have all the preparations you'd like. I think she's done amazingly well.
Queen Elizabeth reigned through over a dozen American presidents and just as many British prime ministers. Her first was the formidable Winston Churchill, proving a savvy stateswoman and a constant leader on the world stage. The years brought their ups and downs. The wedding of Prince Charles and Diana seemed to be a highlight, and Elizabeth watched as her daughter-in-law captivated the world in the 1980s. But when that marriage collapsed so scandalously, many Britons began to doubt the relevancy of the monarchy itself. When Diana was killed in a car crash in Paris, Elizabeth stayed in Scotland with her family. As waves of grief rolled over Britain, the Queen was seen as unsympathetic, and public anger at the royal family reached a fever pitch. And then she returned, and joined her people in mourning.
What I say to you now, as your queen and as a grandmother, I say from my heart. First, I want to pay tribute to Diana myself. She was an exceptional and gifted human being. As
monarch, Elizabeth maintained tradition and yet moved just enough with the times.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Your Majesty. Who can forget her appearance alongside 007 Daniel Craig at the London Olympics? It was a rare moment of public fun from a woman who prized dignity, but her family knew a different side.
If you do ever have problems, you can share them with her and she will listen and she will try and help. But otherwise, she sort of lets you get on with your own life and carve your own path.
Perhaps one of Elizabeth's proudest moments, Prince William's marriage to Kate Middleton in 2011, a wedding that united the British people and breathed fresh life into the monarchy. 2 years later, the Queen would welcome the newest heir to the throne, Prince George, and later Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis.
She's a remarkably energetic and dedicated guiding force for her family. And I'm so glad that my children are having the chance to get to know the Queen.
In 2015, Elizabeth became the longest-serving monarch in British history, passing her great-grandmother, Queen Victoria. A long life, a long reign. She watched with pride as the next generation celebrated milestones, and she endured the disgrace of her son Andrew's public scandals that saw the Queen strip him of his military affiliations, royal patronages, and the title of His Royal Highness. Her reign, which was born out of her uncle's abdication, saw her grandson Prince Harry also step away from royal life.
The decision that I have made for my wife and I to step back is not one I made lightly. It was so many months of talks after so many years of challenges. And I know I haven't always gotten it right, but as far as this goes, there really was no other option.
One biographer called her Elizabeth the Steadfast, her strength guiding her people through the COVID-19 outbreak.
We should take comfort that while we may have more still to endure, better days will return. We will be with our friends again. We will be with our families again. We will meet again.
Elizabeth's deep sense of duty above all, earning her a permanent place in the hearts of the British people. In 2021, she mourned her greatest loss, the rock of her own life, her husband, Prince Philip, her closest confidant and advisor. Their marriage was an enduring partnership, a sentiment she shared on their 50th wedding anniversary.
All too often, I fear Prince Philip has had to listen to me speaking. But he has quite simply been my strength and stay all these years.
73 years of marriage spent side by side, and at his funeral, the poignant images of the Queen, due to COVID protocols, seated alone. She will be remembered for a lifetime of unwavering service to her country. Perhaps Prince Charles put it best on the night of his mother's Diamond Jubilee.
As a nation, this is our opportunity to thank you and my father for always being there for us, for inspiring us with your selfless duty and service, and for making us proud to be British.
The Queen is dead. Long live the King.
And Terry Moran is joining us now from Washington, D.C. Terry, you lived, you worked in London, you covered the Queen extensively. Your thoughts on her passing today?
It's unimaginable, really, Amy, to think of the British throne without her on it. No one under the age of 70 really can remember any other monarch. And when I was there, I arrived as an American without much particular feeling one way or the other about Queen Elizabeth. But by the time I left almost 5 years later, I'd grown to deeply respect her. Her sense of duty, she showed up every day. Her connection with her people is just beyond understanding, I think, for those of us who aren't British, and her connection with so many around the world. She was a central figure in the history of Britain. It's a different country. The world's a different place without her. And the last thing I'd have to say is you saw in her later years what I think people who know her best, knew her best, said was characteristic of her. She loved the job.
She certainly lived her life in service. Terry Moran, thank you for that.
And he called her a historical figure. She's an iconic figure. She's also a pop culture figure. She is just such a part of our world. And this is something that essentially most of the people who are getting this news and can hear our voices right now have never heard before in their lives. There is a king of England right now. there is a king. And what you're seeing here was a short time ago at Buckingham Palace. This is the official notice being put up, another notice being put, of course, at Balmoral where she died, but here at Buckingham Palace. And what they're putting up is essentially a notice to people letting them know that the Queen has passed. It's the same language that we saw a short time ago in the tweet that they sent out, that the Queen died peacefully at Balmoral this afternoon, and the King will remain at Balmoral this evening and will return to London tomorrow. We have been watching pictures as I bring in our Lama Hassan, who's at Buckingham Palace right now. We have been watching these pictures, Lama, for a little while, sitting here for the past hour. It was rainy. We saw very few people out. We slowly start to see those crowds pick up, and give us an idea of the mood, the tone, and what you're seeing around Buckingham Palace right now.
Yeah, hey TJ, I don't know if you can see over my shoulder, but there is a very big crowd gathering outside the main gates of Buckingham Palace. We have been here all day today, and all day people have slowly been arriving, tourists coming up to us trying to find out the latest, wanting to know the latest on Her Majesty's health. Now, this is a very sad day. It's a sad day for the nation and for all the Commonwealth countries. You know, she's been such an integral part of our lives to millions of people around the world. She's simply been the Queen, one of the most famous, most recognizable women in the world. She's Queen, a grandmother, great-grandmother. This truly feels like it is an end of an era. You can see the Union flag behind me. That's flying at half-mast, of course, signaling the death of Queen Elizabeth II. And moments ago, as you said, Buckingham Palace releasing a short statement saying that the Queen died peacefully at Balmoral this afternoon. The King and the Queen Consort will remain at Balmoral this evening and will return to London tomorrow. This is a nation that is grieving. It is in grief, and TJ, it is palpable.
And you know, it was also palpable because we were there, Lama, for the Jubilee, the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. That was just it's unbelievable to think that was just 3 months ago. And as we are able to zoom out and see this crowd continue to pick up at Buckingham Palace, that tone, and I know you remember it as well, Robach, and Lama, you stay with us here, but the tone there, to watch that tradition and to watch, look, you do the polling, and there are different members of the royal family who have pretty bad polling numbers. She is one.
Yes.
Her polling number, she is such a popular monarch. And to see that celebration that we saw just a few months ago, and now just her health has been a concern, and the mobility issues, and we saw her have to skip some events there, but then she showed up at others. So she was still working and working hard at 96 years old, and to be at this moment now, it's something just 3 months later.
Right, and to see that crowd, and I'm sure in just the moments and hours to come, it's going to grow even larger as we watch people celebrate her, something that they had never seen before, that Great Britain had never seen before, a monarch making it to her 70th year, to that Platinum Jubilee, and so many people were concerned about her health, but that celebratory tone now, of course, one very different today, a somber tone there as people come to pay their respects to Queen Elizabeth II. And I know that we've got Victoria Murphy there right next to Lama Hassan, who's there, right there in Buckingham Palace. And, you know, Victoria, you wrote a book about the Queen, the life in pictures. I want to get your reflections on this day and the mark and the impact that Queen Elizabeth II has left on her people.
I did, you're absolutely right. And writing that book, you know, really gave me a sense of just how much she has done in those 70 years. But I think crucially, how many people she has formed a connection with. She has traveled around the world, more than 100 countries, visited world leaders, but also been out in communities meeting the public. And that is why I think we are seeing so many people here today behind me, because people feel that they had a personal connection with her and that they knew her. Even if they'd never met her, people really felt that they understood her and she formed that connection. And you know what I think is really very poignant about this day, and the thing that has really struck me, is that, you know, she got her wish, which was to fulfill her duty right until the end. Just 2 days ago, she was fulfilling one of her most important constitutional roles, bringing in a new Prime Minister. We saw those photographs of her, photographs at the time that people felt were reassuring, but now we have this absolutely devastating news. But I think one thing we can take solace from is that she wanted to fulfill her responsibilities right up until the end, and that is what she got to do.
And if we're able to put that, the picture you're referencing, if we can get that back up with the Queen and the new Prime Minister Liz Truss, this meeting took place at Balmoral. It normally would have taken place at Buckingham Palace. So not necessarily maybe a surprise, as much as we've been talking about mobility issues. But to your point there, she always had this sense of duty. And she worked. I mean, she's 96 now, and that's the picture we were referencing there, the meeting they were having.